nobody knows what it is. They don't think it's a thing. If it comes up in conversation, oh, you know, I can't go to such and such, I've got sword fighting class. And they sort of double take, like, sword fighting? That's a thing? A lot of people, it kind of goes over their heads, especially older people. They're like, that's just weird and I don't care. But a lot of the younger people, they're like, oh, sword fighting, where do you do that? I mean, I have a whole new group of friends, and I do see them outside of class. You get this bond with them. And I have made those bonds, and you know, after 2 years, it's like, oh, like I know these people better than, you know, some of the kids that I knew from high school.
HEMA stands for Historical European Martial Arts, and that itself is a large encompassing umbrella. It's not just sword work, wrestling, dagger work, sickle, saber, and all sorts of things. It's like more or less saying martial arts, but specifically referring to European martial arts of a particular time period. In the time range we're referring to in HEMA, it's usually about the mid-1800s backwards. European martial arts, European swords, European, hell, fantasy have always been an interest for me because it's part of my heritage, and I'm always interested in history. And this had an extra allure to me because there was the historical aspect to it, in where the scholarship actually drives HEMA.
This is essentially, he has this book, he's like...
After the First and Second World War, there was a significant disconnect to our history.
By the time World War I came around, there had been rifles and cannons for a really long time, so why use a sword? It was a bunch of people who were keeping it alive because it was a tradition. It was something that our ancestors did. And then, of course, those people would go off and they'd die, or they'd come back from war not ever wanting to fight again. And that sort of thing stamps out a lot of tradition. We're amateur archaeologists. We take the sources from the medieval era as early as the 1400s. I mean, that's the source work we have to deal with. So you pick up a book and it's hopefully translated for you, but it's still written in the way they would have spoke, roughly. So the sentence structure is weird, the grammar is different. So you read what it says, and you look at the drawings if it has any, and you try to put two and two together. And that's where it gets onto the field portion, where you pick up a sword and get a buddy. And you say, okay, it says I'm going to strike from up high, from right to left, and it says you have to intercept me at some point, and then they use this phrasing of the word a step, or oblique pass, or I raise my hands, or I cross my hands, or I push my pommel towards the sky, or something, some sort of colloquialism like that. And so you try it, and then it doesn't work. And then you try it again, and it kind of works. And you try it again and again and again, and eventually it works. And then you get a buddy come in from elsewhere, and you go, okay, we've been working on this for about an hour. And he goes, okay, show it to me. And then he breaks the technique in about a minute. And you go, okay, that's a different context we hadn't thought of. And then you can cross-reference, and then it goes up from there. You cross-reference different masters, and you pull from him and this guy over here, and this guy 100 years later who referenced the same master you're referencing right now. And you pull in all those different viewpoints, and you get your buddies together again, and then you pull in a new person to make sure you have good perspective. And that's the experiment. I honestly think that the more people having eyeballs on this, the better, because it'll just bring more scholars into it. It'll bring more people into it.
Advertisement and money, I would say, are the biggest challenges that at least we face here in Canada, because, you know, not a whole lot of people know about us, and space is at a premium.
So I decided I was going to take a course at Algonquin, because I hadn't went to post-secondary. And I was like, oh, I'll take a useful course, and then I'll take a fun course. And I was like, oh, sword handling, that looks good. So I show up like 2 hours early, and I'm a little nervous, and I get in there and I'm just wandering around while everyone comes in walks this gentleman, short cropped black hair, and what at the time I was like, oh my, like very trim facial hair. And he was forever known, and still is known 4.5 years later, as Hot Sensei. We ended up discussing and becoming friends through mutual enjoyment of swords and HEMA and all things nerdy from, you know, the 80s and 90s, Transformers, fantasy books. But yeah, HEMA doesn't always work that way. You can't always meet, you know, your significant other, but sometimes you strike gold, and I think that I did. I was really, really surprised on how diverse all the people were in, and that there's actually a couple of girls. I kind of expected a lot of like masculine men or anime nerds.
Some people are in it to train, other people are in it to teach, others are into it because they really like the history. The people like myself are into it for all sorts of reasons. I think it's really cool, for one.
Part of it that I really, really like is that we get people from all walks of life.
It's exciting that I personally can contribute to restoring that part of our history.
It's empowering and fun, and I am very, very glad I started it.